Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade, focused on student support and digital experience. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology who will be bringing you their perspectives on how digital transformation is reshaping the way we recruit, engage, and graduate learners. You'll hear firsthand accounts of how institutional leaders are developing their strategy, as well as get deeper on the stories of how these EdTech tools are being built to foster better student outcomes. With that, let's get to today's episode. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, episode number 301, with Faton Sopa from Manaferra, coming back to the show to discuss the recent research his team produced that is examining the current state of student search. They digged into undergraduate, prospective students, graduate students, adult learners, and all across different generations. Really great stuff, and always appreciate having folks on who have kind of committed to this work to really create the shared data foundation for our conversations and how higher ed leaders can really inform their strategy with the right information about what's actually happening versus any of their kind of anecdotal assumptions and all that sort of stuff. So appreciate this conversation and the research. Definitely go check it out. And please do sit back and enjoy this wonderful episode number 301 with Faton Sopa. I'm excited to have you on as our guest today. You had been on as a previous guest in an episode back in 2022, episode 151. We'll have to link out to that if folks want to check it out. So certainly been a little while. We're happy to have you back, and kind of the inspiration for this episode is a bit of connection and intersection from the recent EduWeb Summit. We've talked to some people on the show that I connected with from there, but then also a recently released research report that you've kind of broken down on a bunch of different kind of bits and pieces that we'll talk more about here in a moment. But we'll start off as we always do. If you'd want to just briefly introduce yourself, your background, and the work that your agency, Manaferra, does in the higher ed space.
Thanks for having me, Dustin. It's nice to be a guest on the show for the second time. My name is Faton Sopa. I started Manaferra about 11 years ago with my co-founder, Granite. And at the beginning, we were like a lot of agencies, a lot of marketing agencies, taking a lot of kinds of clients and projects, building websites and running campaigns. But over time, it became clear to us that higher education had a unique challenge. A challenge that was was not just about marketing, actually. It was about making an impact on people. Back at the time, the colleges were doing quite okay with social media, the website and stuff, but one thing that we noticed consistently is that students could not find them. Worse, they were finding institutions, but didn't trust what they saw. So we would think like if we could help schools show up where students are actually searching and show up in a way that builds trust, then maybe we could directly impact the enrollment. So that's how we define ourselves as an agency. We are an enrollment marketing agency. We specialize in search, and what we basically do is that we help universities to get found, get trusted, and chosen by the students of tomorrow. We work with all types of schools in the States, from Ivy League to the small schools, and basically we are specialized on search engine optimization. But recently we have introduced a new framework, which is called Omnichannel SEO framework. Where we do actually optimize for every channel, not only Google, because that's where students are going to search.
Yeah, and I know you've gotten around to a few other Enrollify shows recently to kind of talk about this sort of approach and the research you recently did as sort of as a bit of a foundation for it. And I think it's really interesting because I think it's honoring a bit of like just my sort of observations as I kind of sit in my place, kind of, talk with a lot of folks and just sort of trying to keep up with a lot of headlines and everything. And just knowing that, the current state of search, I think has reached its sort of breaking point kind of just naturally. A lot of people, I think, were just sort of dogpiling, kind of really overly investing in search, or just sort of like overly reliant on that single channel, and that happening and kind of coinciding with the sort of rapid ascension and expansion of AI as a way that people are trying to find answers to questions, which include how they're pursuing their higher education. So tell me a little bit about those recent research reports that you broke down kind of by different audiences of undergraduate and graduate adult learners and, different generations of prospective students and everything. Just talk a bit about that approach and, how you kind of broke it down, why you approached it that way, just how these reports came to be.
December 2024, we came into a realization that the way that institutions are doing SEO is just not working anymore, and that is not having a real impact in enrollment. And not only SEO, but their digital marketing investment will not actually making a lot of impact on the enrollment. And we saw a lot of frustration in the industry again and again, where schools were pouring resources and money and everything into one channel only, whether that be Google Ads or social media or other channels, that was not consistent with the students' behavior today. The way that they search, the channels that they search has changed, and most of institutions we noticed that are not taking advantage of these changes. So we decided to dig deeper into that. So we talked to 1,500 recently enrolled students across all segments, undergrads, grads, and adult learners, with one goal in mind. We wanted to finally understand how they search for college and how they validate and how they choose colleges today. And we paired that with real search data, and we used third-party platforms like Ahrefs and SEMrush to see the exact queries that students were typing into Google and other search engines. And this gave us multiple layers into the way the students search, what they actually do on those platforms. And when we put all this together, we were able to identify the gaps where institutions are either invisible or inconsistent. So we ended up with having 4 reports. We initially thought we were going to have 1 report, but then because of the way that we designed the research was based on audiences, then we built 4 different reports, and we come into the realization that the way those segments surge and decide for college is quite different. The way an adult learner decides for college is quite different from undergrad or grad. And then we saw that there are quite changes on the way that the different generations decide about how to search and how to trust and choose colleges. So we created a report for that as well. And the whole goal behind this were to provide institutions with like kind of mirror of reality into understanding and finally mapping how students search and how to reach them today. We ran the research in Q1 this year, and it took us some months before we were able to finalize the reports. And I'm sure the report is quite actionable. That was our intention, not only to have a report with a lot of stats and numbers in that, but have analysis and insights that we can take actions from. And I think that is what those reports do.
Yeah, it's always kind of the unfortunate downside of these things that I think are just like really cool sometimes to see kind of like, oh, what's happening about one thing or another and all that. But like it can lack the ability to be kind of applicable in people's day-to-day lives. And I think, in that scenario, it's like, oh, it's still going to kind of inform your perspective or kind of how you're going to like build a strategy. But there might just be kind of a long tail of like, well, I read the report, I'm kind of just sitting with it and reflecting and, how does it maybe apply? But like, yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's really great. The way that you all kind of approached this and framed it and presented it and kind of broke it down where it's like, kind of this, more macro level, examination of things. But yeah, it feels like very applicable in kind of the micro sense of like, yeah, like how are we going to invest our dollars, in marketing and recruiting these prospective students and everything. Like it's a very practical thing, and you can kind of turn off one spigot and turn on one, just kind of make those adjustments and everything. And I think it is just very valuable in that sense, like where I think always what I appreciate about these and why I always like having folks on, about different pieces of research that folks are putting out is that, I think anecdotally, a lot of people would have said, oh, I'm sure like different generations search differently, but they might just have their own opinions about what that means. Now, like with stuff like this, you're sort of basing it on something. We can kind of have a common foundation and base to kind of have a conversation and sort of, make those adjustments about how we're spending dollars and things. So I guess if you want to just sort of expand on that notion of like what excites you most about this research, like now that you have it, you're getting out and about and you're talking a lot about it, like just anything else about sort of, because I'm sure, you had your guesses or your predictions or hopes or different things, but like now that it's real, it's here, you're kind of sharing it and engaging in conversation with people about it. Like what has been exciting for you most about this research and getting it out?
The real value of this research is how practical it is. And different from other reports, the research found out that 80% of students switch platforms during their college search process. And the top reason for that are they couldn't find enough information or they wanted something more authentic. So the real value of this research is how practical is this. So take one data point, for example. 80% of students switch platforms during their college search. And we found out on this research that the top reasons for doing that are that they couldn't find enough information or they wanted something more authentic. So this is not a budget problem. Those are really solvable issues that institutions can solve and can close these gaps with much better and clearer and more human content that answers the questions that students are asking on all those platforms. I also got excited about the fact that this research breaks the myth that students behave in one uniform way. And actually, what the research found that undergrads, grads, and adult learners, they all search differently. For example, adult learners are using AI tools like ChatGPT and Gemini and others almost double the rate of undergrads. And that's because they value speed and efficiency more than undergrads. And this tells us that the strategies that work for one segment will not automatically work for another. And it is that kind of clarity, that kind of clarity I think is quite empowering for enrollment leaders, because now they can design campaigns that match the actual student behavior instead of building like a whole enrollment marketing strategy on assumptions. Because unfortunately, what most higher institutions do there, a lot of strategies are based on assumptions instead of real data. But honestly, the part I love the most about this research is how it connects the dots between visibility, the search visibility, and enrollment. It shows that being seen on a platform, regardless what platform that is, it's not enough anymore. You have to be seen, but you also have to be trusted, you have to be consistent, and you have to be present across every decision-making touch point that students go through before, during, and when they decide about college. And this for sure will feel the confidence shift on the student side, where they will say like, okay, I can picture myself here. And when students like come into this realization after they go through all of these channels and they get convinced about a school and they say, okay, I can picture myself studying and maybe living on that city as well, that is quite exciting. That's quite exciting because it is, I think, it's our job as higher ed marketers to understand students more, what their pains are, what they are going through, and how we can better influence this decision, because it is one of the most important decisions of their life.
All right, let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor. Forsyth Technical Community College was juggling siloed systems, fragmented data pipelines, and manual workflows across marketing, admissions, and CRM operations. Then they deployed Bolt Agents, Element 451's AI workforce platform. The result? These agents handled over 80% of student inquiries independently, saving 183,060 human minutes, and cutting call volumes by 14% within just 1 week of rollout. Curious what your AI teammates could look like? Try an agent today at element451.com/agents. Seeing that, like, it's very surprising to me, like how kind of persistent and strong a platform like Reddit is. But I think that like it is so good at that kind of like social proofing and being able to kind of get peer to peer or kind of near peer kind of things where it's just like, oh yeah, like I just studied there, I just applied there, I just got accepted there. Like here's what my experience was like, or here's my kind of tips or whatever else, or those sort of things. It's like it's hard to get that easily and quickly on other platforms, especially if you're just trying to kind of like put out queries or like there's a specific thing that I'm trying to kind of figure out or understand. Like the way that you broke it down, like who are we trying to cater to or reach out to or sort of engage with? Let's understand the way that adult learners are approaching this, what are important to them, and and then just be just smart about building our strategy accordingly. Because I think the other thing is like that idea of using kind of like one tool for all audiences or something, like one approach for everybody. And it could be where it's like, oh, okay, we're trying to build up more of our graduate learner population or adult learner or whatever else. Let's understand better that audience and be smarter about everything. Yeah.
There is an overlap between segments on the way that they search and decide about college. But certainly, the way that those generations of those segments take decisions is quite different, and the motives behind that, the mindset is different. What they are going through is quite different, and without us understanding those elements, it is quite impossible to build an effective strategy that will help us to fill our enrollment pipeline. So the first step towards that is to understand our audience, what they're going through, and not only between segments, but as well on a specific program within an audience. Because often, even the program makes the difference, or the way that the program is delivered makes a difference. And I see a lot of schools doing a lot of marketing activities without properly understanding their audience, and I think that is the wrong way and of doing it. And what we differ from other agencies basically is that we based our strategies on data. Everything you do is data driven on first understanding the audience, understanding the segments, how they take the decision, and then working back, building a strategy. And when you do that, you can actually, when you do reverse engineering, the way that your students take decisions, you can build a very strong and sustainable strategy that will help you to reach your enrollment goals for a very long time.
Using data in the right way, I get like that idea of how much you can maybe kind of preempt things versus like, I guess, on one hand or another, like the idea of like, if you do something and it doesn't work, it's like, why didn't it work? You can like, dive into your results of what you did or something, but it could be that idea of using reports like this and, whatever else to kind of do that sort of post-mortem and kind of autopsy on things. But, and then that's all well and good. I think fair use of time, but I think, like doing the sort of kind of forecasting, predictive, kind of like whatever else. And it's like, you have tools like this to be like, okay, if we're going to be, reaching out to a certain audience, like you said, there's overlap and everything, and being much more informed from the outset versus like, like things don't work out and you're just trying to figure out why. It's like, well, you can be just making smarter decisions at the outset, knowing that your resources are likely going to be limited in time and money and whatever else, just being like wiser and adjusting risk, I guess, for the investments that you're making and that sort of thing. The one thing I always like to ask about this, because again, like I said, it's like maybe having sort of predictions or, ideas or notions and everybody kind of having their anecdotes or kind of assumptions about things, in this kind of realm. Was there anything that was surprising to you that you did not expect when you got the results back from these surveys and like started compiling and analyzing for the reports?
The first thing that we saw while analyzing the data we gathered was just how quickly AI has become part of the search journey. We expected some adoption, for sure. More than 3 out of 10 of adult learners said that they use AI search like ChatGPT and Gemini and others to ask questions about programs, admissions, and rankings. And not only did they use it, but they said that, most of them said that the answers there were quite helpful and sometimes even more useful than what they found on the official website. And that is quite huge, I think. It is huge because the way that AI works is that it doesn't have a second page of results. And it tells us that if a higher education institution doesn't make into that answer that those AI machines generate, you basically do not exist on that moment of the journey for the student. And the more moment that you don't exist on the college search process for a student, the less likely you are to be chosen when they build their shortlist. And we know from this research and other research as well that building a shortlist of universities is the first step before they choose where to request more information from or submit an application. And that was quite interesting for us to understand while analyzing the data. And the second thing was that the role of the social media late in the journey. We tend to think that TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube are more of awareness tools. And they're nice for brand building, top of the funnel stuff. But our data show that students were going back to those platforms even after they had a shortlist. So they are using those platforms to do a gut check for their decision. And they're interested on things like what a student life actually look like. Can I see myself here? And for many, a simple video of like day in the life video can carry much more weight than a whole section or set of pages on your website. So this is a clear message to us, the higher ed marketers, and the message I think is quite clear. Is that the decision-making process is shifting away from places that institutions feel most comfortable, like websites and campus visits. They are moving on platforms that schools have less and less control over. And I think that is a wake-up call that we need to evolve from keyword-based queries in Google to prompt-based queries in an omni-channel SEO environment. So the search has become quite complex, and doing SEO on Google based on keywords doesn't work anymore. You have to be on the channel. You have to understand where the information is getting discovered and be there on the right time with the right message and understanding what questions are you students asking during each moment of the journey.
And I feel like you just teed up our final question very well here, because I think you've really framed in a lot of really just clear, concise ways of how people can leverage these reports, some examples of how students are kind of navigating these searches, why they're using different platforms, and just, affirming the fact that most are. And I think for just very logical reasons but what does it actually feel like to walk to class? The websites still have their place as the content that is going to be surfaced, like you said, in the AI platforms and everything, and if they're bringing up institutions or programs or whatever else, and however a student is searching for that, I think it's just knowing how best to optimize each of the things, because it could be that we're empowering brand ambassadors to put out those videos of day in the life and whatever else, so we're encouraging them and maybe giving them the tools and whatever else, but how they do it is still up to them. It's still their voice. It's still very genuine and authentic. So a lot of new things here, like you said, rapid ascension of AI, and just really affirming the need for an omni-channel approach to marketing. What advice would you give to higher education leaders who are navigating all of this change and trying to figure out how to kind of innovate and kind of iterate their approach?
My first hope with research is that will not be something that higher ed marketers will skim through to find stats, but use it as a decision-making tool. So here it is, a research that you can take to your president, your board, or your faculty and say, here's a hard evidence that students are not just searching on Google. Here's a proof for that. And here's where they are searching, and here's why we need to invest differently. And I think that changes the opinion and the conversation from opinion and assumptions to data. And I hope that this pushes the institutions to shift from a mindset of a channel mindset to a student journey mindset. I would say, like, don't fight for more noise, fight for more clarity. What I mean is that students today do not think in terms of channel. They don't care about channels. All they care about is getting their questions answers. So they're asking, what can I do with this degree? Can I afford it? Will I belong here? And your job as a change maker in your institution is to make sure that those questions are answered very clearly, consistently, and in all places the students are actually asking them. And so on their best interest, you can influence their decisions. Because the trap that I see a lot of schools fall into is like treating their marketing like a series of campaigns. For example, they do big push of awareness, big push of applications, but they are completely silent in between. But we need to understand that the students do not stop asking questions just because a campaign ends. So my advice to higher ed marketers out there would be to start mapping the student journey first and then build your strategy around that. And you can start this very simply. Like you can pick a program, you can find out the real questions that students are asking during each stage, during awareness and discovery stage, during shortlist stage, and during decision and apply stage, and then audit whether you have the answers in those places. Are you present in those places? Are you present efficiently with the right data on the right time? And that is your roadmap, basically. Because when you discover these questions and what is your position and your visibility into those questions, that is a starting point for you. And you can start building your strategy around that.
My only thoughts on all of that is that idea of like recognizing that I think there's just going to be such a low tolerance for like friction and all of that. So that idea of like, you know, you map it out, you kind of know maybe where you're like, okay, we're doing pretty well here. We need to improve here. And like why the investment is going to matter and be really beneficial is that the students are searching and doing whatever else. Like you said, it's like if you're not showing up in, you know, the AI search results or whatever, like you're just not going to be seen. And even if like you are top of the list, like they know who you are for one reason or another, if they can't get the answer to the question that they're asking, they're not going to be super patient and like navigate around the maze of your website or whatever else. So like that idea of like, it is time well spent to, you know, get those answers out there clearly when they're asking them, where they're asking them, and those sort of things. Any of us could certainly respect that idea of like when you're trying to find something online that you are not going to like just persist to the end of the earth to like find the answer. So it's like, okay, like let's dig in with this research, understand what's happening, do some analysis, kind of map out where we are now, where we need to go, how we're going to get there, and, you know, get to work on it and everything. And I think just knowing that it's not going to get any less competitive for many institutions to recruit their students, I think it, you know, this sort of research can definitely really empower smart investments to make sure that they're in a good spot moving forward. So appreciate you and your team putting this all together. We'll have a link to it in the description for this episode. So strongly encourage folks go check it out. And just appreciate you and your time for coming onto this episode.
Thank you for having me, Dustin.
Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Geek podcast. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow. So be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.